What up guys, today we are taking a look at each class pros and cons in order to help you decide what class is right for you. Hope you enjoy. Let's start with the Sorceress. This class has by far the best build diversity in the game. Nothing comes even close to how versatile a sorcerer can be. You can make builds for all three elements, each element provides multiple viable build paths, and the best of it all, you can mix them with each other, making Frostfire builds, maybe Lightning Frost builds, whatever it is that drives your boat, Sorceress has got you covered. You will never get bored of this class, since anytime you feel like it, you can just completely change your build into one of dozens, each of them offering a unique playstyle. Sorceress is also quite tanky, thanks to the powerful low cooldown shields it has access to, a vast array of AoE crowd control to keep enemies at bay, and of course its ranged nature if you are playing a ranged build. Because yes, Sorceress is so versatile that there actually are melee builds for it, in case you fancy the Battle Mage playstyle. When it comes to group play, all this crowd control is amazing. Especially the ability to gather monsters so that you and your team can easily burst them down afterwards. Sorceress has just incredibly high team utility when played properly. You have access to some of the best AoE and single target abilities in the game as well, so blasting through dungeons will never be a problem. Also, the fact that Sorceress has so many builds means that the odds of at least one of them being an S tier within the meta is way higher than any other class in the game. However, until you have your build assembled, with a lot of cooldown reduction in it, and all the necessary synergies, it will feel quite clunky to play, which to be fair is the case of every other class as well. The problem with Sorceress is that its mobility is entirely attached to how much cooldown reduction you have, since you rely entirely on your teleport ability to remain mobile. Keep in mind that once you have your setup ready, your teleport will have such a low cooldown that you will, in fact, become the second highest mobility class in the game. So don't worry, it just takes some time to get there. Another con the class has to face is how reliant it is on mana. Mana is Sorceress's resource and is the fuel that dictates how many spells you can cast within a given time. You will be building towards countering this reliance, but still mana management can be an issue. Also, this class has the most pleasing visual effects there are, which at least for me make the entire gameplay experience much more enjoyable. Now let's take a look at Rogue. This class is incredibly fun to play with. You can choose to play either melee or at range, or even mix them both and go with a hybrid playstyle. Rogue has by far the best mobility in the game, able to rush through dungeons like no other, while dishing out tremendous amounts of damage at the same time. However, even though Rogue has access to both melee and ranged attacks, for now it seems that there are only two viable builds. You can either play Twisting Blades if you are melee, or Penetrating Shot if you desire to play at range. This is quite a concern to me, because I believe that Rogue has so much more to offer, it is so fun to play with, but the truth is, even though there are more possible builds, these two are by far magnitude superior to any other for now. The Twisting Blades path is incredibly fun, but it also is the most difficult build to play in the game. It has a very high skill ceiling, which can be both a pro or a con, depending on your perspective. As for me, it is a major pro. I love the feeling that there is always something I can improve at, and this Rogue build provides that in a way no other build can. However, if Twisting Blades gets kicked out of the meta, well, at that point you are locked out of melee Rogue, and that is the reason I didn't pick this for my first class. As for ranged, Penetrating Shot is the only ability with enough raw AoE power to clear high nightmare dungeon monsters. Some other builds can kinda try to do it, but are far inferior in comparison. This means that ranged Rogue has the same one build dependency that melee Rogue does, which is quite a problem for me. Moving on to the Barbarian. Remember what I just said about one build viability being a major issue? Well, Barbarian either plays with Whirlwind or ceases to exist as a class in my opinion. Whirlwind Barbarian is one of the most powerful builds in the game. Even after being majorly nerfed, it still remains a S tier build for sure. It is fast, has a lot of damage, a lot of group utility through shouts, it is also able to gather groups of monsters every few seconds, and to top it all off, Barbarian is one of the tankiest classes in the game. There is nothing this class is missing other than being forced to play in melee range, but again they are so tanky that it won't matter until they push very high tier nightmare dungeons. All the shouts they have access to provide amazing team utility, having a Barbarian in your group is a must, and I must say that they pair incredibly well with the Sorceress class. The problem is that, other than Whirlwind, every single other Barbarian build is so clunky and boring to play, it truly feels like you are leveling a Paladin in classic WoW. You just stand there spamming your rend, for example, which to be honest looks like an auto attack. The class just does not work outside Whirlwind, that is if you want to have fun of course, which should be your primary goal, as that is what video games are for. So with that said, Whirlwind Barbarian is very fun and incredibly powerful to play, but if it gets further nerfed, well then the viability of the entire class goes down with it. Now to the Druid. This class, like the Sorceress, has amazing build diversity available to it. You can choose to play as a Shaman archetype class, which invokes the elements to do damage at range, or transform into either a werewolf or a werebear to wreak havoc up close. When it comes to team utility, Druid is for sure one of the best classes to provide it. However, if you choose to do that, you will likely have to give up a spell slot or two, losing a bit of damage potential in the process. On the other hand, Werebear, as two of the strongest builds in the game, is able to dish out a lot of AoE damage, and doing all that while being pretty much unkillable. However, they do struggle when it comes to single target damage, which is a big problem when fighting bosses. The ranged shaman playstyle has amazing spell effects, but seems to require you to stand still for the majority of the time. And if you have played WoW, you know that a standing still shaman is a dead shaman. The same concept applies to Diablo IV. Mobility is necessary to stay alive as a ranged class, and Druid is lacking in that department. Now finally to the Necromancer, the Dark Summoner class that focuses on raising the dead as allies. Necromancer also has pretty good build diversity. You can have an army of skeleton warriors, an army of skeleton mages, or even sacrifice them all in order to boost your character with powerful buffs. For now, it seems that there are only two viable build options. The first one is a very strong S tier build that focuses on the Bone Spirit ability, which is the skill with the highest skill damage multiplier in the game. So as you can imagine, building around maximizing this ability's damage results in you being able to one-shot almost every monster in the game. Yes, it is as powerful as it sounds, but nothing comes without a cost. Necromancer has absolutely no mobility whatsoever. It is the least mobile class in the game, which isn't much of an issue because of how tanky it is, but still in my opinion mobility is a must-have in this game. And even if it remains viable despite being a slow moving tank, what is the point if then it turns out to be about as boring as it gets? Which, to be honest, in my opinion it is. Necromancer is my least favorite class at the moment. It is slow, has pretty terrible visual effects, some of them even fill the entire screen with dark smoke that just makes it impossible to actually see what is going on within the game. Still, if you want to be a true master of puppets, then look no further and embrace the Necromancer's dark side right away. Thanks for watching, subscribe if you haven't yet, and as always, I will see you in Sanctuary.